This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update video for July 30th, 2 p.m. Here's the graphical outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have an area of disturbed weather in the eastern Caribbean Sea that's rather disorganized and spread out here. There's only a 10% chance of development for that, according to the National Hurricane Center. And area number 2, which is 90L Invest in the East Atlantic, there's a 20% chance of development with that. And notice how they've stretched out the circle to include this new batch of moisture that's come off Africa. And the indications are from the Hurricane Center this could all consolidate into one larger system and track across the Atlantic. So we might see yet another invest that might take over for 90L. In fact, the GFDL and HWRFs have stopped running their models on 90L, and that's an indication that we may have a shift here coming up. And I'll get to the details on that in just a minute. But back in 1970, we were watching an area of disturbed weather in the western Caribbean Sea that became Hurricane Celia, and as a major hurricane came in just north of Corpus Christi, Texas. Winds over 140 miles an hour, an extensive amount of damage in Texas from Hurricane Celia. And then also back on this date, back in 1995, here's Hurricane Aaron. This developed north of Hispaniola and went through the Bahamas, hit near Melbourne, Florida. Did quite a bit of damage right along the coastal areas from Category 1 winds, cut across the state of Florida, and then made a second landfall in Pensacola, Florida. And I remember a storm chaser, I don't know who it was, but they got excellent footage of the Hurricane Hunter flying through the eye of the hurricane as it was making its way on shore in Pensacola, Florida, with some very strong gusty winds as a Category 1 hurricane. Right now we don't have anything like either of these going on in the Atlantic right now, so all of our attention is out in the East Atlantic. Here is that system in the East Atlantic, and this is an interesting shot. I talked to Jim Leonard about this yesterday, and when the system came off Africa, it looked to me anyway like we had a low pressure area in the mid-levels coming off of the Cape Verde Islands right here, and here it is today. The system is right there in the mid-levels, an area of low pressure, and what that's doing is dragging dry air down into this system. And our low itself, according to the National Hurricane Center, is somewhere down in here, a 1010 millibar low down in here. But now we have this new batch coming off of Africa, and the indications are from the Hurricane Center this will all consolidate into one rapid, well, not rapid, but a wide, broad area of low pressure out here and move across the Atlantic. So we'll see what happens with this, but I think that's the reason this is not developing right now is because of the dry air being pulled into this, and we'll have to wait and see how this all gels together over the coming days. Here are the early model runs on 90L, and again, the BAM model basically due west, the same thing with the LBAR. Again, the GFDL and the HWRF have stopped running on this. Earlier, in the first runs, they had this becoming a hurricane, significant hurricane over here northeast of the Leeward Islands, but they've backed off in the latest runs of basically dissipating the system and not doing much with it. And I think that's because they're losing 90L, and the concentration is going to be a little bit further east here over the next 24 to 48 hours. Some other models, the European model wants to take this through the Caribbean and have it south of Hispaniola going around August 9th as a tropical storm or possible hurricane in the Caribbean Sea. And that's pretty reasonable track considering the time of the year. Generally in August and July the systems track further south and you have a track more into the Caribbean than you would something say like this. That's more for late August and September type tracks, but when you get in early August they tend to go much further south. The GFS latest run has it continuing kind of weak up in here somewhere. It's beginning to trend a little bit further south with every run, so this might be a further south movement with when the long run when this moves across the Atlantic. Here's the shear tendency or the shear forecast from the GFS in 48 hours. Pretty light wind shear, so wind shear is not a factor with the developing of this system. It's just going to be the dry air intrusion. I'll get to a little more of that in a minute. Here is the wind barbs in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and again I want to point out here, notice the mid-level flow out here is mid and lower levels. There's a broad circulation out here northwest of 90L, which is down here. So that's, again, another reason why this is not developing very rapidly. Again, everything else out here is really not that favorable, and it's not organized systems out in the Caribbean Sea right now. Here's the system out in the East Atlantic that's coming off the coast of Africa. And again, there it is, right near the Cape Verde Islands. And that should merge with 90L over the coming days or become a separate invest altogether. Yet here's another one that's going to come off in a couple of days. So things are looking active in the intertropical convergence zone. All right, here's the graphical forecast, intensity forecast models from Chris's TropicAtlantic.com, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he's created a pretty neat program here that graphically shows you what the models are indicating this intensity is going to be down the road. And we're seeing Category 1 here for several of the more mainstream global models up here in about 120 hours, 5 days. Category 1 hurricane, and we're seeing that from the SHIPS model and the HWF and the Schiffer model. But again, these models are trending downwards. Yesterday they were up at Cat 2, Cat 3. And for example, the GFT model and the NOGAPS model keep this as a very weak system. So this is going to be remaining weak. More than likely it's trending downward. The aviation models keep this as a very weak system. Tropical storm status going out in 5 days. So the aviation models are pretty decent on intensity as well. They've been pretty good so far this year. So things are looking like a downward trend with the potential down the road development of this system, and that's probably because they're losing 90L and there's going to be a new system that's going to form behind this. Here's the LSU water vapor. I like to show this image from time to time because this really points out the dry air really well. And you can see what's happening out here is the dry air is being pulled in on that mid-level circulation I was talking about near 90L, and that's kind of killing this system. It's that dry African dust out here that's wrapping in and squashing development at this time. That's why this is not developing right now. You know, as I mentioned, we're gonna. This is Chris from TropicAtlantic.com, and there he is visiting the hurricane hunters in Tampa. And Chris is going to be on the Weather and the Media show here coming up on Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in to HurricaneCity.tv. Chris is going to talk about all the products he's producing at TropicAtlantic.com. He's got a really cool hurricane hunter program that integrates with the Google Earth. He's got the models that I just showed you, and he's also going to be grading the models. He's developing a program that's going to figure out which models are performing the best on a particular system, which will really come in handy for the tropical update videos here. So we'll talk about all that. He'll be here via Skype and take your telephone calls Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on HurricaneCity.tv. Don't miss it. Well, that's it for now. We'll keep in track of what's going on out in the East Atlantic as new information comes out. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.